Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Living a Purposeful Lifestyle show with Jason Ricks. And today I have a special guest. I can't wait to share him with all of you. Justin and I have gotten to know each other very well. Justin is a professional geoscientist, a serial entrepreneur. He owns two of his own companies, including a dive shop and a sub analytics company. And as well as that, he's a professional cave diver. So, Justin Heath, welcome to the show. So happy to have you today.
Hey, thanks, Jason. I appreciate you having me on. You guys have just started following Jason. It's he's a very inspirational leader. So I hope you guys continue to follow him. He is really getting a good LinkedIn show with this, and all his other content is very inspiring. So I hope you guys follow along with us today and enjoy the show. So
let's get right into it. So Justin, I've kind of gotten to know you over the last few weeks, but for those at home that don't know you, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about what you do now, and then we'll kind of get into kind of how you got there. So why don't you walk us through what you do now?
Sure. So my main focus right now is the environmental side of gas stations, actually what Jason does. A lot of people don't know that gas stations are one of the biggest polluters in the United States. I didn't really realize that till I got into my field. So I do the cleanup, the assessment and remediation for when a gas station leaks, and really protecting human health. That's really what we're doing. So I do that, and I also do the compliance, just helping operators with government regulations, keeping them, in compliance so they don't get fines and they don't have leaks. So really trying to prevent the leaks. So it's kind of an industry that most people don't know about until they hear it on the news and stuff like that. So it's been good.
So it's a gas station version of, think about Monsters Inc. when Boo goes to the factory and the yellow guys in the yellow suits jump out and it's all contaminated. That's Justin for gas stations, right?
Right. Yeah. At least that's how the news puts it. Right. Sometimes it's not glorified like that, but some instances it is. I mean, if you have a bad leak, it can lead down that road. You try to get it before it leads down that road, but there is instances where there's people in yellow suits and stuff walking around. So it's a little bit different. A lot of times the leaks happen underground, so you can't physically see them, which is good for, operators like you. You don't want people seeing stuff like that. So, but a little bit, I mean, you do have to be, cognizant of PPE and stuff like that, the yellow suits and stuff. So it's interesting world.
Yeah, and so we have obviously high-tech equipment that's attached to our tanks and things like that help monitor that kind of stuff. For those of you not familiar with it, so I don't want anybody leaving the show thinking that that this stuff goes just undetected forever. There's checks and checks upon checks upon checks upon checks. So, but if you're in this business long enough, and especially some older facilities. Older tanks, that's where you kind of run into that. But, it's a very technical type of job that you do, Justin. So why don't you tell us kind of like your journey starting back to maybe where you went to college and just kind of walk us through a little bit of your life history that brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. I've always been a nature lover. I love to be outside. And when I was choosing a college degree, I sat down and I looked at, I saw the normal business degree, and I said, I really don't want to sit in an office and be on a computer. I'm kind of more hands-on, and I saw, geology or environmental science is kind of the term that most people use that work in my industry. And happened to be that the college I wanted to go to had that program. So I selected it, and at the time, oil and gas was really high, and a lot of the professors that I went to school under were in oil and gas. So I thought I was just going to, graduate with a geology degree, go drill oil and be rich. And I didn't even really know about the environmental side when I graduated, or shortly after I graduated, I learned about it. But I had been studying, to drill oil and stuff like that. And shortly after, oil started going down after I graduated, and I started looking into this, into more environmental science side. And it seemed like something I would be interested in. I'm really interested in water too. We'll start talking about diving and that whatnot. But groundwater, I do a lot of groundwater stuff. So I thought, you know what, I will, try to network on the environmental science side. So the week after I graduated, I just started networking, meeting people like Jason, calling on the phone. And it's just really good to use, LinkedIn and everything like that. And I got hooked up with an environmental science company that does gas stations. And it wasn't but a week after I graduated, I just took off on the road, and
Yeah.
history ever since. I literally have driven and done work from the south border of Texas all the way to the Panhandle, anywhere in between. So I just traveled for almost 5 years, just nights, weekends, working overnight shift, just doing the, just going through the ringer, just learning, learning from step one. And it's been quite the adventure since then.
So walk me through, you went to the University of Texas, Arlington, right?
Right.
So walk me through, your process of like how you said that was the school you wanted to go to. So I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm curious, why the University of Arlington or Texas
So
Arlington?
I wanted to be close to home, close to my friends and stuff. I grew up west of Fort Worth, in Weatherford, actually close to your folks' family, small enough world. But I'm cheap, so I wanted a relatively cheaper school, a state school, that had the program I wanted, my degree, and just to be, closer to the Metroplex. And it got, good reviews, and I met some of the professors and stuff. And even since I've been there, it's growing. It's actually has more students than UT Austin. So it's, the program was great. I met plenty of good people in the Metroplex. It's kind of a commuter school, but they're also, it's growing. They're building apartments everywhere and whatnot. So, and I don't regret my decision at all going there.
That's awesome. So what I want to, so let's transition a little bit. So you've been in the space for quite a while. Walk me through how you ended up going from, okay, you're working for someone else, you're working for a company. One of the things that I think is interesting is, and what's kind of become very apparent to me as I've been interviewing more people and, doing other podcasts and talking to people, and I've learned so much about people. And I think that we go through this part in life where it's like we're trying to find our way, right? And I think a lot of people look at growth of a career of like, you go work at this company, you got to climb this ladder, right? Well, often what ends up happening is that in today's world of work, I think you end up more on a staircase to where you go to work at a place, you gain some skills, gain some knowledge, and oftentimes to take the next step or the next big move in your career, a lot of times you're having to find another company or another avenue because trying to get promoted, there's gridlock and just a variety of reasons why promotions within just don't seem to happen in today's society. So I'd be curious to hear about your journey, because at this point you're an entrepreneur, you own your own company. So walk us through from, okay, you've got this job straight out of college to entrepreneur. Like I know kind of what's happened recently, but fill in the blanks a little bit for us.
Sure. Yeah. So, I like Jason kind of referred to, I started to climb the corporate ladder. When I graduated, I thought, I'm a first generation business owner. So all my family, the goal was, to get a job and, become a manager or somewhat like that. So I thought, that's kind of where, what I'm shooting for. And I slowly, year by year, I started working my way up, and just climbing the ladder. And I just kind of, the pay was, going up and up and stuff, but the purpose was kind of, my internal purpose was kind of going down. I just felt, this wasn't for me. So I kind of looked at my strengths and weaknesses, and I loved it when someone would just give me a project to do by myself. Take this and run with it, and be the project manager or whatever on it. So I said, you know what, maybe I need to, do this full time, and, where every project is my own. And that notion kind of started 3 or 4 years ago when I, started thinking about it, and I looked around, and all the projects I was doing were, basically 1 to 2 people. I worked for some larger companies with thousands of employees, but day-to-day operations was, 1 or 2 people. So I thought, well, that would fit. Just doing, a single kind of consultant deal. And then it really hit when, in my reviews at larger companies, they were really, leaning towards, okay, you have to sell your own work or, obtain your own clients to kind of move up from this level. And in the back of my head, I was just thinking, well, why not sell it for yourself? If I'm going to be going and networking and talking to different people, and making these connections and these relationships, I wanted it to be genuine from me, not having another layer of a company to kind of buffer me. I said, you know what, I'm going to, make it genuine and go meet these people and sell it for myself. Not just the financial gain, but I wanted them, to have a better experience and just get 100% of, what I could offer. So, I just kind of took all that into consideration and said, you know what, it's, I think I could do this. I've got enough skills. I worked for smaller companies. I worked for bigger companies, and kind of, rolled it in. And I said, you know what, I can do this. So it's kind of a self-confidence deal almost. And, so yeah, so I took the plunge. It's almost been a year now. And it actually, COVID made me take the plunge. We can get into that a little bit here, but I was working for a larger company in June of 2020, and they laid me off. I was doing commercial real estate, the environmental side of commercial real estate. And as most people know, most industries froze for a couple months. So that kind of, everyone was just on lockdown, pause, and kind of figuring out what was going to go on. And, those were rough times. I was only working 1 to 2 hours a week at my company. So in the back of my mind, I'm kind of waiting for the call. It was rough times there. So and sure enough, the call came in June. They kept me on till June, but there was really no work to be had. So, literally in June, I got the call, and that next day, I said, well, here goes. I literally, took the dive off the cliff. Yeah. And said, well, here goes, posted on LinkedIn, started my website, just, literally working, the next morning, I was just taking off on it.
So now, if I'm not mistaken, this is not your first dabble with entrepreneurship, right? Talk to me about, I think you have had that kind of in your blood since you were a kid, right?
Right. Yeah. This was my first, official serious one, but I've always, since I was a kid, my very first dabble was, mowing yards as a kid. As a young teen, I, wanted to make money, and, my dad taught me how to, work the tractor and stuff. And I just started knocking on doors and got a couple clients and whatnot. And they saw how, they liked my work, the other neighbors around. But before I knew it, I was mowing 5 or 6 yards. So that was my first dabble in it. And that actually kept me really busy through my teen years. That was a good little gig that I had going on. So
Awesome. For those of you that maybe have joined us since we got started, I just want to remind everyone we got Justin Heath with us, and we're discussing Justin's journey to entrepreneurship. He owns a compliance company that makes sure that gas stations stay in compliance, as well as a diving shop, which we're going to be talking about here in just a few minutes. Justin, I have to tell you, so as you've talked about these different things, I think about myself a lot and how I've always been this kind of like trying to figure out, like, it was baseball cards for a while. Me and a friend up the road from me, we would buy now and laters at the convenience store, put them in this bag and sell them on the bus and at school. And we would buy them for a quarter, and then we would sell them each a dime. So then, I think there was 5 in a pack. So I mean, we weren't making big money, but just we were always hustling to try to make an extra $3 or $4 so that we could go buy more baseball cards or whatever it was at the time that we wanted to buy. So I think it's one of those weird things that gets in your blood, and I don't know that it ever really gets out. So let's talk about, as you transition, so many people you hear about, especially like in stay-at-home moms, single moms, guys getting laid off. It just, you hear this so often to where people have that itch to go on their own, and then it's like they need the kind of the lightning bolt, if you will, of a jolt of life to push them to go do it. And then so many report that once they've done it, that they have this feeling of almost liberation, or this euphoria of, man, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? And I'm just curious, have you hit that point yet? I mean, I know you're still early, but are you getting to that point?
I have with my diving business, and we'll go into that a little. The environmental business is still slowed down somewhat. I think the lag from COVID hasn't completely gone away, but it is liberating. I mean, like you said, it's almost in your blood. You make a couple dollars here and there, and you just keep going. It is addicting almost. You just awesome. X job, and just it is interesting. It's an experience, and I never thought I would take the plunge 100%. I always in my mind thought I would do the side hustle, and then kind of transition into 100% of my income. And I will say, for any entrepreneurs looking at it, it has been good to go 100% in. It's very scary, but it allows me the time to network and to put 100% of my efforts into it. And I think that has really helped. So I always envisioned it not going 100%, but doing 100% has really been good.
Yeah, that concept of 100% of the risk, but 100% of the gain for someone like yourself is a very, very good place to live. For those of you out there that are listening, if you have any questions for Justin, and I have a feeling that as we get into this next part and we talk about the diving part, I just know that there's going to be some of you that have a question. So don't be shy, ask the question. Would love to hear your questions for Justin and to share those with everybody. So Justin, so let's get into this diving part. So this is the part that I think is just tremendous, and I could ask probably 1,000 questions. We don't have time for that obviously today, but I'll try to keep them reined in as best I can. So why don't you tell the people at home about your secondary business, which is Diver for Hire. So why don't you talk about how you started that and what you do?
Sure. So like I said, I've always loved outdoors, and my second love, or actually probably my first love, is water. Anything to do with water, swimming, boating, diving. And I actually got into it at UTA. I needed a PE credit for my degree plan, and they had a diving program. So I said, instead of taking bowling or some boring PE class, I'll take diving. so I took diving, and I just dove all through college. I, took, more classes than I needed. I ended up with 10 PE credits. And it really turned into a passion of mine throughout college and after college. And then kind of fast forward to now in my entrepreneurship journey, the environmental side wasn't doing as well as I'd hoped. So I said, well, I already own all this scuba equipment. I've been diving for 10 years. Let me just post on a Facebook group, a lake Facebook group. If anyone drops their cell phone or wallet or keys or anything in the lake off the dock, see if anyone needs me to retrieve that. So I posted up on a lake Facebook page, and literally the next week or two, I had 10 jobs. It was, people were messaging me. My gear didn't dry for the next 2 months. So it had kind of started as a little side hustle. I'll just do it for an extra cash. And I'm going to make it into legitimate business. And so I still do the phone recoveries and whatnot. I also do underwater hole cleaning. I know Jason's interested in that. So bigger yachts that, are paying to take out of the water, I actually go dive underneath them and scrub the algae off the bottom. So it has been an exciting journey with the diving. It's kind of a market that I found that's under saturated with divers. So it's been.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit in the green room about the fact that, it's not the cheapest thing to get into, because you got to have the training, you got to have the equipment, and you got to have the time. So trying to marry those three things together, there's a very select few people that could actually do that. The barrier to entry is not the easiest, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So talk to us about maybe tell us a story about one of your most interesting dives that you've done.
Yeah. In a lake, it's probably been when I felt something. This is one of my earlier recovery dives. In most Texas lakes are zero visibility. So I always joke. I said, if you want a picture of a Texas lake, here's a black screen. That's the beautiful Texas lakes. So most of the time you're using your hands to feel around, and probably the weirdest dive yet is when I touched something and it moved, and then I felt a big wake behind it. It was a 50-pound catfish or whatever. Hopefully it was a catfish, not an alligator. That's one of my biggest fears. I haven't seen one yet, but I know they're there. So I try to stay away from those. But
can you share with us? You shared with me a story when I first met you about because I love to golf and I like to play golf, and so I envision that there's people who have thrown golf clubs in the lake or whatever, and you actually do have a story about recovering a golf, I believe it was a golf bag.
I did, yeah. It was actually at the famous. Jason's actually been there, to the Colonial Golf Club here in Fort Worth, Texas. It was a Sunday evening. I was, sitting at home just piddling around. And I got a call from a golfer on the golf course, and, I answered, "This is Diver for Hire." And he goes, "Oh, I have a recovery for you." And I was said, "Good. What do you have?" He said, "Well, my golf bag, I had it on a push cart, and it went into the lake." And the first thing I think, well, if it just went in the edge of the lake, it can't be more than 3 feet or 4 feet deep. So I said, no problem. I'll be there, within the next hour or two. And I show up, and he said, well, it actually floated to the middle of the lake and then sunk to the bottom. And I kind of looked at him. Well, it's a little more complex of a job, but we'll we'll try it. So anyway, we recovered the golf bag. I got everything. He had his phone, keys, wallet in there. And after we took pictures of it and everything, and my fiance was sitting there after it happened, and she had one of her uncles call her and said, "Hey, did Justin just recover some golf clubs?" And it ended up being one of my fiance's uncle's friends that I recovered the golf bag for. So it was
That's great.
Interesting job.
Yeah, so we just want to say hi to June and Joanne. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys.
Hope you're enjoying the show. So this is the living a purposeful lifestyle. So I kind of want to transition. We talked a lot about what you do, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about the diving, but talk to me about, what that means for you, and kind of what having the freedom of running your own business allows you to be purposeful with your time, and how that affects your family and living your life in a meaningful manner that you and I've talked about.
Right. I'm really lucky. I have a fiance that's really supportive of this journey. I know a lot of people wouldn't, and but it really is just, I tell my fiance all the time, I would rather make half as much money and, live a purposeful life. I just get enjoyment out of, returning a cell phone, or even doing environmental work. There's a lot of joy in it, just being able to interact with the client, on a face-to-face level, and, accomplishing the goals that they're trying to accomplish. It does bring a lot of, joy to me, even if I'm, not on the gravy train of the corporate ladder. So it is very fulfilling. I will say that it's a lot of hard work, but when you do land your first job, or it does start to pick up, it is very fulfilling. I mean, I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So
yeah, so you talked about corporate America, and you talked about living in the corporate world. So what is something that you would tell someone that's young, that's maybe just graduating high or college, and they've landed this first job, it's a medium to larger corporation? What is something that you look back on and say, man, I wish somebody would have shared that when I was brand new? Let's share some wisdom with the people out there watching.
Probably what I would say is that entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but all the experience you're going to gain from working at the larger corporations is going to help you one day, no matter what you do. Opportunity. This is a quote from I think an ex-president, is sometimes disguised in the coveralls. Kind of a quote. You don't be afraid to get down and dirty. I did quite a bit of that. So just but also keeping in the back of your mind, trying to live a purposeful life, even in the larger corporations. Some of them you can find ones that are kind of aligned with your purpose. Actually, one of the companies I worked for, was one of the core values was being an entrepreneur, so it kind of drew me to that. And so even just look for those companies and those core values, and when you go through the interviews, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. What you're you have to really do some soul searching yourself. Everyone's different. I did had quite a few nights where I thought, what am I trying to go for here? And do some deep thinking about it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good call out, and very interesting one. I think that it's very easy to get into the role and think that take the pressures of society, that the success that you see your parents have, or loved ones, maybe an uncle or whatever, who's now in a different zone of their life. They're in the experience zone. In their 40s. They've been in the workforce, perhaps doing what they're doing now for 20, 25 years. And I think that, being in that position now myself, I've come to understand a lot more. And it's one of the reasons why I'm doing what we're doing right now is I'm wanting to share that because I want kids to understand that it's okay not to have all the answers and to be hungry and willing to learn, right? And I
Right.
think you frame that very nicely there where you talk about as you go to work, find a company that matches up with your core values, those things that are important to you. And my thing on to take that to the next level is that as you find the place that matches your core values and has what's important to you, money will come. Money comes when we are doing the things we love doing and that we're good at. When you find that, you have to be persistent and dedicated to stick with it because that's where the magic is. And to your point, you'd rather live a middle existence, barely making your bills, but happy than to make all the money and miserable.
Right. Yeah, no, I've actually read a business book. I forgot who the author was, but it's kind of what you talk about. They call it like the blue flame when you get an organization or you get a industry that you really like and stuff, things just start to heat up. That's really the hottest it can come. So kind of the blue flame is what I call it.
So talk to me about this. So I know that we've got a big wedding planned, right? In about a year, is that right? So you're going to be becoming the Mr. and the Mrs., right?
We are, yes, sir. We will probably already be married with COVID and everything, and I've had a couple friends that have tried to go through with it during COVID, and we decided to kind of postpone it a little bit. So this time next year, I will be married. So I'm looking forward to it. I have, like I said, she's very supportive of this whole deal, which is almost key. I mean, it's very hard to do anything without the support, even if it's not your fiance, your family, or even a mentor. It helps a lot. I think it was Alan Weiss is one of my favorite authors for different consulting books, and that's the first sentence he says. Before you start your business, make sure you have a support system, whether that's your fiance or your mom or dad or whatnot. It really helps out. It kind of when you kind of smooths out the highs and the lows when you throughout the whole journey. There's plenty of highs and lows, so it's good to have your support system for you.
Yeah, I think that that's well said. And I think that goes with anything in life that if you're going to do something big or you're going to take those steps out to make sure that you have properly sold or properly informed those that are going to be around you, that are going to be your core people to help spur you on. And, I do understand some things in life, there's always going to be naysayers. And usually there's always one or two in your family. I think the biggest thing is that there's got to be that support of your spouse or, mom and dad, those type of key players in your life of making sure they know why you're doing it and what your plan is. And I think that as you do that, I think that helps spur you on when times get tough. So I want to kind of revert back and talk a little bit more about this diving thing. So I see that being something that you really like. So when we've talked and everything else, we always somehow end up back at the diving. So, when I think about it, I know that you're good at environmental and that's something that you do, but I don't know that that's like you're passionate about that. But I think you're really purposefully passionate about diving. So have you thought any more about, okay, I love doing this. This is awesome. And if money was no issue, and I asked you today, Justin, if money wasn't an issue, which one would you do? I think you'd probably say diving if I had to guess. Is that true?
That's true. Yes, sir. Yep. I mean, it is my passion. I mean, when I'm underwater, it's literally like you're in space or a different world. It's just, to me, it's very relaxing. A lot of people would think different if they're not comfortable with the water. But I do love it. And we'll see how this summer goes. It's kind of the off season right now for diving. There's not many people at the lakes, but It's been interesting with COVID. Boat sales are through the roof. People are really hitting the lake. So the demographic of my, customer base on that side of my business has been, very well throughout this COVID. So I would definitely pursue it full time this summer if it starts going that route. I will be in the water whenever someone calls me.
So Justin, just so we'll know, and we'll make sure to put this in the show notes, and on the in the comments on LinkedIn, and then obviously this video will also live on YouTube. So when you if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you for a diving job if they live in the Metroplex area, Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Sure. My website has a bunch of pictures actually, and also my phone number. It's diver the number 4 higher tx.com. Make sure to go check. There's pictures of that golf club recovery on there. I love pictures to showing people. I get a lot of customers that come and just watch me recover because I think it's so interesting. So check out the website.
I think I shared with you, about the idea of trying to GoPro or whatever. There's another guy out there that I've seen on that does film his recoveries that he does, and if I'm not mistaken, he's way up north. I think he lives in the Michigan area, but okay. I could sit and watch it for hours. It's just fascinating, and he goes to these very heavily traveled areas. So like the Brazos has these tubing things, so he'll go somewhere where they put all these tubers in, and he'll go on a rainy day or something when it's not a lot of people out, and he'll go dive these areas, and he's returned cell phones, class rings. This guy has found it all. Have you talked to police departments or anything about potentially them using you as kind of a consultant or someone, and if they ever needed it?
No, I haven't talked to them. I try to stay away from that. I don't want to get into the body recovery scenario. That's mostly what the police guys do. So I try to stay away from that. And a lot of times they have their own dive teams that do that type of thing. But yeah, I haven't really pursued that route yet.
Yeah, and I guess I wasn't thinking about the body recovery. Thinking more of like, weapon recoveries or things like that. They have I've seen where people have found, weapons and things that have been thrown that turn out to be weapons that they're looking for, whatever. So as we kind of wrap things up here and we kind of head towards the finish here, I just want to talk about, like, in your mind, you've kind of made the transition now. You're into entrepreneurship. Where does the next 3 years take you? Where do you see it going? And how are you going to purposely pursue those dreams and those ambitions? So what's your plan?
Yeah, I think right now I'm kind of at the crossroads with the two. We've kind of talked about that a little bit, but I think in the next 3 years, through networking and stuff, one or the other is going to really prevail. I think, whether that be the environmental or the diving. So I think within the next 3 years, I'll have probably dropped one or the other. I really do. I think, when I'm getting more clients for each, it's going to be hard to keep up. So I really think I'll take the route of one or the other. And I really, hope that I'll have to, hire more people with one or the other. So I just growing, to the employee level, I think is where I will be in, 3 years.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I think that that's how things usually go. God's hand, I think, will be on that, and I think that you'll be kind of steered in the right direction as to where you should be. And I think that's the big thing is I love that you're open to wherever it goes and not looking at it through a with it all figured out today. So as you think about it, what advice do you have for the audience about living purposeful, and living your passion?
I think just really, like I said, I've had some deep talks with myself a lot of nights, and just, answering the question yourself, and then going out there and all your interactions you're making with people, all your network you're doing, just kind of, check every once in a while and be like, long term, is this, something that's really going to be fulfilling? There's so many times, different routes can be money motivated and stuff, but I've gone down the money routes, and they're not as fulfilling as what your actual purpose is. So just kind of, it's not always bad to go down the money route, but just thinking long term, and making sure that's aligned with your purpose.
Outstanding. So, Justin, I really appreciate you being our guest today. It's been great getting to share your story with all of us. And I just want you to know that we're rooting for you. And if I lose my cell phone, it's great to know I know a guy that can get it for me.
For sure.
To the audience, thank you so much for being part of Living a Purposeful Lifestyle today. We'll do this again next Wednesday at 3 o'clock, same place, same time. Until then, continue to purposefully pursue your passion. Till then, see ya.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Yep. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks. Bye.